Covering international cricket and the world of pro wrestling. This is Stumps and Bumps on SEN with Eric Bischoff and Bharat Sundaresan.
And welcome everyone to Stumps and Bumps. My name is Nims Azor, joined as always by my tag team partner, Bharat Sundaresan, who is very, very busy, and we are the outsiders. We don't have our Hulk Hogan with us this week, Bharat.
Yeah, there used to be a few episodes of Nitro where, forget about Hulk Hogan, the real life Eric Bischoff wouldn't show up either. It was very rare back in the day, but he might have a business meeting or whatever else it was. And it was the NWO just running amok without their real leader behind the scenes, which is Eric. And it is a bit surreal that we're talking about the same Eric Bischoff all these years later, who was part of Stumps and Bumps. Let's get that out of the way.
It's crazy because, just a full disclosure, as you know, there have been a lot of travel delays and whatnot. There is some bad weather and stuff that is happening over in the United States. And if you are affected by that, we really do. We are thinking of you at this point in time. But yeah, unfortunately, Eric is stuck in there, and we must forge on with a little bite-sized edition of Stumps and Bumps here. But there is plenty to talk about because England are on the back foot with the second test. We're on the cusp of the second test, actually. And Bharat, you're actually in Brisbane as we speak. You've been doing your net whispering, and you've been let's start off with the big news, shall we? Usman Khawaja is not in the. He's been ruled out of the lineup, and his back injury has, in a way, solved Australia's selection dilemma of who's going to be in the top order, because given Travis Head's heroics in Perth, the big question mark was, has Usman done enough to get there?
Yeah, and I am in Brisbane, and if you are watching this on YouTube, as you should, I am not trying to pretend to be Sabu or the Iron Sheik, who's Dark Side of the episode I just watched recently, the original Sheik. It's just like Nims said, it's pretty hectic over here, so I'm trying to do 10 things at the same time, which includes towel drying my hair, which I just washed before I get to just run the hair dryer over it. The beauty of being here in Queensland at this time of the year, when there are no storms, is the sun is so sharp that I just need to get a bit of blow dry going. The rest will be taken care of by the sharp sun, and the sharp sun will take care of the heavy dose of greenery that has been seen on the pitch. And there's been a lot of talk about the pitch, but you'll see that it won't look the same as we get closer to the test match, which is just over 24 hours away from now.
Yeah, it's interesting to see what happens. And also, I've never been more envious of you talking about hair right now, Bharat.
Oh, I must apologize. Literally, Eric's famous statement, I think it's a declaration. He says, I even had it on a T-shirt back when 83 weeks I was a regular consumer of their merchandise. And it said, sometimes it's talent, most times it's just the hair. And, I think both Eric and I can agree on that. But speaking of Usman Khawaja, you just mentioned Nims. I had a chat on the sidelines yesterday with him, and there's been so much speculation around, is this it for Uzi? Is he going to retire? And he's kind of dismissed all those conversations. He's still talking about being very keen to be there till the end and to win the Ashes. So, that's good news if you're an Usman Khawaja fan. But yeah, just briefly catching up with the selectors yesterday as well. The decision, in a way, was taken out of their hands when Usman Khawaja came batted for. The official number was, I did the math, or I kept an eye on my clock, was 29 minutes and 28 seconds the other day, which is nowhere close to a proper Usman Khawaja high-intensity net session 3 days out from a test. That, for me, was a giveaway that, I don't think he's fit, or he's been deemed fit to play in this test.
So now the race against the clock is against the third test in Adelaide. I know that we're barely on the doorstep of the second test, and we're always looking ahead. But the thing about Usman Khawaja is, and we mentioned this when we talk about wrestling as well, once you reach the wrong side of 30, then the question marks are asked. I thought it was a very telling sign, though, that they didn't take him out of the squad. They've left him in this squad, and they were actually quite adamant that, no, he's still part of this test squad. And Uzi seems like the sort of guy you know him better than I do, and I also very famously I used to have a cricket show here on SEN with Simon O'Donnell, and in 2019 I stupidly, in hindsight, said that I don't think we'll see Usman Khawaja play another Test match. And lo and behold, funnily enough, Usman actually was a guest on our program and called and actually said to me, he's like, so what did you say about me? And I was like, I was wrong. I was wrong. But he's been written off before. And we saw what happened when he came back during that stellar run in the Ashes where he made those twin centuries at the SCG, his actual home ground in front of his wife and child. So this is something that, going on the back foot is not something that Usman Khawaja isn't used to.
Yeah, exactly. And 2019, look, I mean, it might have sounded outrageous to some, but I think Usman would be the first to tell you that probably even he thought he might never play a Test, because I was there on that 2019 Ashes and just the way things played out. And when he was left out, it was, again, very similar speculation back then in Manchester about, oh, where is he? Why is he not at training? And it's something like Uzi's carried around throughout his career playing cricket, where there's always been question marks about his attitude, which is I mean, and I've always said it's all like pretty out of line, because one thing, if you followed the Australian team close enough, you know that when he's at the cricket, right? He does, like I just said, the irony is the biggest reason I knew he was not going to play this Test is because of how he played a few good shots, but it just didn't feel like he was physically there 100%. And to see him bat only for 29 minutes, that's not how he prepares for a Test match. That in itself was a red light for me to tell me or anyone who knows Uzi close enough to know that no, he's not fit. So yeah, he has come back from being written off multiple times in his life and his career, but this time it just feels like it'll be more challenging than ever before. Not just because of where he sits with this stage of his life. I mean, he's about to turn 39, I think, later this month. But I think it's more to do with what he might have to replace. Like one being Travis Head, who now will get to open, which means that after what he did as heroics in Perth, this just seems like the best position for him to continue to put that pressure on England early. But then the other question is, Jake Weatherall, who looked good in that second innings. Hopefully, I personally hope he makes runs here as well, and gets to play the next Test with some confidence, which will be his home Test in a way. I know he plays for Tasmania, but he lives in Adelaide.
Yeah.
So how does Uzi get back into the team? And that's going to be the bigger challenge now that he's lost his place in the side.
We've sort of seen, we always like to do a little bit of a parallel between pro wrestling and
that's Stumps and Bumps
and cricket here. That's what we have on the marquee. And I was sort of looking through, because we were having this chat before, Bharat, just sort of thinking like, we've seen so many wrestlers like Edge, for example, Daniel Bryan, all these people where injuries have gone and cut short their career, but they have made big comebacks. But there was a professional wrestler who shares quite a lot of similarities to Usman Khawaja, both 38, both had poor injuries that set them back. The wrestler I'm talking about didn't come back in a professional capacity into the ring until, well, he kind of did a few WrestleManias ago. But I'm talking about Stone Cold Steve Austin, because Stone Cold Steve Austin had to hang up the boots at the age of 38. Now, this guy, we all know, he was a staple. We knew as kids, even if you didn't like wrestling, people knew who Stone Cold Steve Austin was. And unfortunately, that injury just knocked him out, just completely. It made him, he had to sit out. And it was only a kind of lighthearted match that he had with Kevin Owens at WrestleMania a few years ago. But unfortunately, Father Time sometimes can say, and I know we said that Uzi has had setbacks before, but I'm sure Stone Cold Steve Austin has even said many a time in his in careers and podcasts that he's done, he was always willing that that brain doesn't switch off. And I'm sure that Usman Khawaja's cricket brain has not switched off one bit. Even if he's on the golf course or whatever, he's still a cricketer.
Very much so, and a cricketer who's hungry to still contribute to Australia and to help them win the Ashes. I mean, what happens after that? I think it's pretty clear he doesn't have to spell it. I'd be surprised if he continues playing Test cricket or is available for Test selection post this Sydney Test in yeah, against England, whether he plays in it or not, or whether he plays again in the series or not. And you're right. I mean, you can draw comparisons between Stone Cold Steve Austin and Usman Khawaja. I mean, both have in their own ways been kind of anti-authority. They've taken on the authority, they've challenged the authority, and they've often, even though Usman Khawaja called himself the people's champion, which is more entering the Rock or the Diamond Dallas Page areas. But I think if in many ways, I mean, he has upset the establishment by speaking his mind on issues which often have had not much to do with cricket, but
Hmm.
the larger world or the wider world in front of us, and that has not always sat down with or sat down well with a lot of people in authority. And that in a way, Nims, I think, and Eric would agree if he was here, makes him that stone cold Steve Austin kind of character. I mean, he's never a stun like he's never stunned. I'm struggling with words here.
No,
He's never stunned the chairman of the Cricket Australia or the CEO yet.
yeah.
But in a way, he has always like stood up against anyone who's tried to not let him have the bottom line because Uzi said so.
And it's funny that you do mention that because Usman Khawaja is one of the like just recently he's unfortunately got himself into some hot water over some comments he made about the pitch. I don't know. Look, I don't want to like if that was say Cameron Green that said something about the pitch,
Yeah.
would that get the same reaction? But because it's Usman Khawaja and because we know that he's very vocal on things, is that the only reason? Like for me, I feel like that's probably the case. But this also
Yeah.
raises another question with Usman Khawaja too, because he now, unfortunately, after however the second test goes, he's
Yeah.
going to be the odd man out when it comes up to the third test. Like there is such a wealth of riches in the Australian cricket team
Mm.
that you aren't just a walk-up start. I mean, there are guys like, what about Josh Inglis? What about
Yeah.
Bo Webster? What about all of these people that are there knocking at the door? There's a reason that during the 2000s, great players like Stuart Law and Brad
Roger
Hodge,
Love.
yeah, that they didn't get a chance to, fulfill these long careers that we see now because they're unfortunately just in the wrong era. And Usman, unfortunately, seems to be that Father Time has just gone up against him.
Yeah, no, and that's a great point because it's no longer just he's fit, he plays. I mean now, like I said, I mean already he's got Head and Weatherald ahead of him at the moment. Now that they're going to play this test, and the fact that he couldn't open in Perth because of his back spasm. But even if you look elsewhere, so Josh Inglis looks like he will be playing this test match in the middle order. But then the other question is there are also the likes of Matt Renshaw or even a young Campbell Kellaway waiting in the wings. Renshaw's made 300s in Shield cricket in the last 5 games this season. So, yeah, I mean, the clock seems to be ticking for Usman Khawaja. But yeah, I mean, we'll see. I mean, in a way, it would have been good to see him probably play another test match on what has been his adopted home ground. He's been playing cricket for Queensland at the Gabba for a while now.
Very much his renaissance
But
was because of Queensland.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So I think, yeah, but it is what it is. That's just sport. You don't always get your poetic ending. As going back to the guy who mentioned earlier, I mean, of all the people in the world, of all the wrestlers in the world, probably the one who made the most money or probably created the biggest impact on the industry, Stone Cold Steve Austin himself had to kind of call it quits at 38, which is when in wrestling they say you come into your peak. I
Exactly.
mean, just imagine what more he could have done.
Yeah, maybe at least we can hold hope that Usman might stun Todd Greenberg. But look, we've been talking a lot about Australia, and we'll take a quick break soon here on Stumps and Bumps. But England also have some trouble of their own too, because Mark Wood will be out. I think is it Will Jacks that's coming in to replace him? Yep.
Yeah, it is. Look, I think again, back to my net whispering, it looked obvious that he was going to play. I think two or 3 days out, even on Sunday. That's the way he attention he was getting in the nets, but also more importantly, who he was batting alongside as compared to Perth. And he was bowling a lot more than he was in Perth. And it was being discussed, Will Jacks as an option. So it for those of our Stumps and Bumps fans. We need to come up with a name for them, who are not well versed with Will Jacks. I mean, he has made a name for himself as a white ball cricketer. Hits the ball hard, opens the batting in the IPL, and often for England as well. Bats in the top half of the batting lineup. So he hits the ball hard. He's a attacking stroke maker. Bowls useful spin at best. I think Joe Root is a better bowler than Will Jacks, but probably England would have realized or must have seen the fact that it's a pink ball test in Brisbane, where a lot more cricket gets played during nighttime than daytime. Maybe the spinner won't be used a lot, which is why they've gone with a. I think it's a good option. It's an option which gives you like the best of both worlds in a way with Jacks, who can come at number 8 now, so
Mm.
that batting is extended as well. We saw Atkinson and Cars bat really well as well in Perth, so they have batting till 10 and Jofra Archer at 11. So England just look, or at least on paper, more power pack than they did over in Perth.
This really is a pressure cooker test for, pardon the pun, for Ben Stokes, because England do need to win this to square the series, or at the very least save face, because you've got, and Joe Root's gone and said his piece about the pink ball test, and this is a format that Australia have excelled at. You might even say that Australia pioneered the pink ball test, and unfortunately for England, this is not. Like, whenever they come down here, whether they win, lose, or draw, you are always going to get, during an Ashes summer, an ultra microscope on you all the time. Everything they do. I believe, I don't know if you've seen the front page of the local paper up there, but them on e-scooters all of a sudden is front page news there. And I'm sure that...
Without helmets on,
Yeah. And I'm sure that, Brendan McCullum and Ben Stokes and Joe Root, and there's people in that locker room that have been on Australian tours and know just what the Australian public and media are like during a really heated tour. So this is probably not news to them, but it does provide a distraction over a test that they're not quite confident in, and they're coming off the back of an embarrassing loss. Like it was you. The last time I saw 2-day cricket, I was playing in 2-day cricket.
Yeah, no, look, you're right. I mean, especially, but I think the one difference though, Nims, is yes, they've been 1-0 behind in an Ashes series in Australia pretty much every time since '86. A couple of times it was drawn, famously in 2010-11 when they won the Ashes the last time. But so they're used to it. But this time, I mean, I think there is some truth in what Joe Root and Ben Stokes have been saying, that they do feel like they're more confident of coming back because of the way they play cricket, and also the moments that they had in that first game, which they didn't make the most of. But yeah, I mean, your point about the scooter story, that's what happens when there's so little cricket being played and so many days where you just have to fill up time as a broadcaster, the writer, so everything becomes a story. And even with the Joe Root thing, I was there at that press conference. He never really categorically said, "Oh, there should be no pink ball test cricket." But on a slow news day, you pick and choose what you want to use from a quote, and now suddenly that was blown up to an extent. So, but that's just how the Ashes works. That's just how the hype and the buzz around the Ashes works. And for all our sakes, it would be wonderful when the cricket starts again tomorrow.
And we cannot wait for that. You get the full coverage of SEN's Test cricket throughout the summer. Also, you get a nice little entree beforehand with yourself and Tom Morris with the new ball. So make sure you tune into that. Our coverage begins tomorrow from 1 o'clock. It's 1 o'clock local time. Well, no, this is why I hate time zones. 12 o'clock local time, 1 o'clock Australian Eastern Daylight Savings Time. There we go. We got that out the way. But hey, this is Stumps and Bumps. We've talked a lot about the stumps aspect. We'll take a quick break and we'll get into the bumps, because Survivor Series War Games has just wrapped up, and we'll touch on that briefly. We'll do that next.
You're listening to Stumps and Bumps with Eric Bischoff and Bharat Sundaresan on SEN.
Welcome back to Stumps and Bumps. My name is Nims Azor, joined by Bharat Sundaresan. Normally we'd have Eric Bischoff with us as well, but unfortunately some travel issues have made him trapped in the United States somewhere. Well, he's not trapped. He's home, obviously. But anyway.
He's not, actually. He is... he wanted me to tell our listeners and our viewers that he's not just stuck at an airport somewhere. He hasn't seen his luggage for a couple of days.
Oh, no.
There have been multiple, connection flights that have been cancelled, or he's missed because of the other cancellation. So he's having a tough week after what was I'm sure you followed it as well, a very successful
Real American freestyle.
RAF3, Real American Freestyle, kicking butts everywhere. Our co-host, like he used to back in the day in the 1990s, is pioneering this new um, outlook to freestyle wrestling or he's making it professional in his own right. And every time I see clips or hear anyone talk about it, they're only rave reviews, and it feels like it is really becoming a hot product, just like Nitro was back in the day.
Absolutely. And that wasn't the only bit of sports entertainment that was happening last weekend. We had the WWE Survivor Series, the final PLE in the United States until February 26. How's this for some stats, Bharat? Because it actually was the highest attended Survivor Series in history. 46,016 people were there at Petco Park in San Diego, which is a baseball arena. And quick results, the men's War Games match had Bron Breakker, Bronson Reed, Logan Paul, Drew McIntyre, and Brock Lesnar defeat Cody Rhodes, CM Punk, Jimmy and Jey Uso, and Roman Reigns. The women's War Game match had AJ Lee, Rhea Ripley, Io Sky, and Alexa Bliss defeat Becky Lynch, Nia Jax, Lash Legend, and the Kabuki Warriors. The Women's World Championship match had Stephanie Vaquer defeat Nikki Bella to retain the title. But let's quickly talk about John Cena versus Dominic Mysterio. The WWE Intercontinental Championship match. John Cena, the champion going into this. Dominic Mysterio, this guy is going to be an absolute superstar. He is going to be just... And I had the pleasure of chatting to him when I was over in Perth. And he is one of the funniest guys. He's so charismatic. He's going to be a star. The future is so bright if it's going to be led by Dominic Mysterio. And he's got this swagger and arrogance about him. It's great.
Yeah, and all you hear, I was listening to a podcast recently, I think Natty Knight that was on it, and she was talking about how amazingly respectful he is behind the scenes, and that's what you want, right? I mean, for all the charisma that he possesses clearly, and there's a reason why John Cena chose him to be his final pay-per-view or PLE opponent, a proper old school PLE anyway. And now he's in the last three matches, twice two of them have been against Dominic. But yeah, for all the charisma and all the talent and the unbelievable future that is ahead of him, it's so good to hear that he's this lovely kid backstage, and he respects everyone. He's just lovable, and he's gracious for getting this opportunity. And in a weird way, I mean, there are so many pictures of Dominic with The Undertaker and everyone else when he was a little baby. Obviously, there was a famous match for Dominic as well.
The ladder match for custody.
The fatherhood between Ray and Eddie, who Dominic still insists is his real dad. It's just a great story. And the WWE are sitting on a gold mine, you feel like. And he just seems to get better and better in the ring as well. So, no, I enjoyed that match, and especially the finish with, again, another super young talent in Liv Morgan. Just the fact that, I remember seeing her for the first time. Nims, I'm not sure what you thought of her maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and she's part of a faction. And I didn't take too much notice of her, but just her character evolution in the last two or 3 years, and especially alongside Dominic, has just been spectacular. No wonder she's getting Hollywood roles, and Bollywood might come calling as well, who knows. But no, super impressed with her, and and she just to get into the ring with John Cena again, who, as Eric has said often, his acting chops have just gone through the roof in the last few years. He's obviously been part of so many big mainstream movies. To hold her own as an actor in the ring with all her facial expressions and all of that, I thought was as significant as the match and the finish and all of that. It was great to see.
It was also good to see. I couldn't believe just John Cena in his to see Raquel Rodriguez and also Roxanne Perez come in and give their finishes to John Cena. Imagine that, because Roxanne Perez she's also from that new crop of talent. So we've got our Rhea Ripley's, and it's very cool to see how this SummerSlam card almost had every generation. You had the Nikki Bella era, and AJ Lee, because they're from that same sort of divas era.
Yeah.
Then you had like Charlotte and Becky Lynch in a match. They're also from a different era. Then you had like Rhea Ripley and Alexa Bliss and Nia Jax and that era. Now you got Roxanne
Yeah.
Perez and Raquel Rodriguez from
Yeah.
this newest era. So it just goes to show that like the the depth of the women's
Oh,
roster, because back in the day, and these are all big stars, they were getting big pops there with John Cena. Back
yeah.
in the day, they wouldn't even be in a backstage segment with John Cena.
No, that's the thing. Or obviously, like, you go back in time when it was a different kind of presentation of women, which, I mean, has been debated enough over time, which was, I'm sure a lot of people feel it's regrettable the way it was.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a different world back then, is one way of putting it. But that has changed, obviously, dramatically in the last 10, 15 years. But still, yeah, even go back to 10, 12 years ago when women's wrestling started getting a lot more genuine attention from a wrestling sense. You'd have like three or four to choose from, like
Yeah,
if you were a booker, like at the tippy top level. But now there's just, like you said, they just keep coming through NXT or through elsewhere. I mean, Stephanie Wecker is another one that you mentioned earlier.
mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, they're spoiled for talent, and obviously Australia is producing such amazing talent as well. I can't wait for I think she's called Daria now.
Yep,
She was Delta at Riot City Wrestling for her. Big shout out to Riot City Wrestling and the team in Adelaide, and a big shout out to Rocky and the team at Melbourne City Wrestling, which includes you, Nims,
that's
in
right.
Melbourne, and all the amazing wrestling factions around, or promotions all around Australia. But Australia has become the new breeding ground for, looks like, more female talent than male talent who are hitting it big.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I mean, you just can't get it wrong. But you're right, to get Liv Morgan, it tells you how highly she's rated. We've spoken a lot about Rhea in the past, but to put her in such a significant John Cena segment and to play such a big role in that storyline as well for the match was great to see.
While we talk about this is going to be a hell of a segue here, but while we talk about Dominic Mysterio, obviously his father Rey Mysterio, an absolute legend, famously the Giant Killer, and you and I were joking throughout the week that Eric Bischoff's
Yes.
favorite cricket Temba Bavuma, he is becoming the Rey Mysterio of world cricket, because at the moment he is being the giant killer. He's slayed India, he's slayed Australia. Who's next? All we need is a South Africa versus England series to see if he can just get rid of the big three and make the Proteas rise once again.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, Australia and India have been knocked out. It's such a pity that South Africa don't play a test match on home soil till, or actually another test match before they face Australia. And when we go there, like, 9 months time from now. So it's kind of bizarre. But no, he's still unbeaten as test captain, 10 wins and 11 tests, which includes the WT's final. He wasn't captain in Rawalpindi, but, when they beat Pakistan as well. But to beat India in Calcutta was quite something, but it was a lottery pitch, and you can say that, oh, it happens. Australia won in Pune before England won in Hyderabad, or not. What was a lottery pitch, but still, I mean, it did get a lot of turn later on. Ollie Pope played a great innings, but the second win was just a professional. It was one of the best overseas wins I've seen from a team outside the subcontinent on Indian soil. The one in Guwahati, where they just dictated terms from start to finish, right? Like they did the hard yards, batted and batted and batted, made nearly 500 with Muthuswamy making 100 as well, and Bauma playing his role. But then the way he captained the team and to keep India to just 200 odd, and then once again to push the game forward the way they got criticized for batting too long,
Mm.
but that is just again a great game awareness. The way you play Test cricket in the subcontinent is not to get too ahead of the game, be patient, and the logic that has always been used is not to give the team batting fourth even a bit of decent batting conditions. You bat till the pitches started breaking up, and when you're well in front. And I thought they played it brilliantly, and Temba Bavuma was leading the way. It's Yeah, I mean, it takes something to impress Eric Bischoff, whether you're a wrestler or a cricketer. But Temba has certainly done that. Just like, I mean, I'm not surprised. Eric speaks a lot about, and I wish he was here to talk about Ray. He saw him when he did, and in one of those joint events that WCW used to have with the Mexican promotions,
Yeah,
and then
well, or Triple A, yeah.
yeah, one
Um,
of them, and then he was just so impressed, and then he started pushing him from pretty early on, right? He was always the first match or at that hour break. So Eric really pushed not Temba. I mean, he's pushing Temba now, but back in the day, it was the Temba of world cricket, of the wrestling world, which is Rey Mysterio.
the thing that really amazes me about Temba Bavuma, so to put it into context too, there's only one other South African captain that's won a series in
Mm.
India, and that is Hansi Cronje. That was back in 2001. But the rise in which he's brought South Africa up, South Africa very famously have a history of well, first off, just the country's history of only being readmitted in 1992, but then you'd almost say that they've been like the the butt of many ICC jokes, and because with their failures in ICC tournaments and things like that, but for him to actually get them back to a state in which they're just, because I remember when Dean Elgar led the team,
Yeah.
this is not the same team that came to Australia in 2022, 2023,
No.
and were absolutely humiliated. And that is not that long ago.
Mm.
Where did this team come from? And has this been there all the time? And that also asks the question, what is going on in India at the moment? Because
Wow, that's a
well,
bigger question.
it is a very big question, but like, and you would actually probably have a much better authority to say this, but Gautam Gambhir as a player, I remember he was always very stoic, very just like
Mm.
business, very business. As a coach, he also seems to be that same way. Can that be a detriment?
I mean, it can be, and look, the this is the worst start any Indian coach has had in Test cricket. I mean, to lose five Test matches on home soil, and to be whitewashed twice, albeit this was a two-match series, but New Zealand did it last year, and two different teams as well. That team had all the big wigs in it still, the Kohlis and the Ashwins of the world, and now. Uh, and Rohit as well, if I'm not mistaken. And now, like, it's a younger team in transition, but yeah, I mean, he keeps, Gautam Gambhir like he was as a player. He said stoic and feisty. He still wants to back his team in, but no Indian coach has been in this position before. So it's who like to have made such a again, just to put it into context, where India lost five tests in 12 years, and now they've lost five tests in just over 12 months,
Yeah.
in 13 months. That's a crazy stat. And they lost the Border Gavaskar Trophy as well. Don't forget. They played well in England, but maybe some will look at it and say, "Oh, there was a great chance for them to win the series," but they clawed their way back and drew it, so that was good. But it's not been, unlike with Temba Bowman in South Africa, who have a new coach in themselves in Shukri Conrad, who's come from. I mean, he's been coaching a lot in domestic cricket, but he's not a former international cricketer by any standard. So he's come in and he's changed the outlook. He's allowed, I mean, he's, asked them to play with freedom and just express themselves, those words that get used a lot in sport. And I thought the way they're finding ways to win as well, Nims, whether it is in Rawalpindi, whether it's at Lords when Australia started as overwhelming favorites, or more than even Kolkata, the way, like I described, they won in Guwahati, tells you that there is this confidence about them that they can win anywhere, and each player seems to know what his role is, which you don't have to be an expert to look at India right now in Test cricket and go, I don't think they know. Most of them know what their role is, except
Yeah.
maybe Jaiswal and Rahul at the top and Bumrah at the bottom and Jadeja in the middle. Everybody else is just floating around all the time. So it's probably the most unsettled Indian Test team I've seen. I mean, you can argue on the side of transition, but some things will have to change because India have four more tests, two in Sri Lanka and two against Sri Lanka. I'm not sure whether it's home or away, but two in New Zealand next year, and then I think they're there for the taking if you're Australia. I've been quietly discussing it with the Australian, you know, um, team as well about how they could plan now, and because cricket calendar moves so quickly. We're in December 2025 now, but January 2027 is not that far.
And also, you've got to think of the World Test Championship cycle as well, because at the moment, India, I believe, they sit fifth, so they don't really have a fighting chance to get there. And unfortunately, too, much like this is why England are judged so harshly. This is why Australia are judged so harshly because you are compared to the predecessors. Like there's like Ricky Ponting, no matter how great he is, will always be
Yeah.
compared to Steve Waugh. Steve Waugh will always be compared to Mark
Yeah.
Taylor. Mark Taylor will always be in the same vein. Like Kohli will always be compared to MS Dhoni. MS Dhoni to Kumble. It just keeps going back and back. And when
Mm.
you do hit a snag and an anomaly,
Yeah.
that's when all of a sudden these questions are asked. It's like, are they preparing well? What's he doing here? Should he be doing this? And then plus we've also got, the IPL auction is coming up very soon.
Yes.
Anything that could be seen as a distraction from
Yeah.
Test cricket will be just magnified.
As it has already. Virat Kohli making an ODI 100 the other day in the ODI series seems to have taken, that always helps, right? That always helps if you're a cricket podcaster anywhere in the world, or if you are, in Indian cricket trying to just like find a distraction. And Virat Kohli playing that first ODI and making a big 100 as well and a big win, a good performance again by South Africa, almost pulled it off in the end there in the run chase. But that has happened. And speaking of transition, which is where I think if comparing codes, the WWE seem to be doing so much right. Like Braun Breaker after Raw this week seems like
Yeah,
he
he's
is
coming after
the
Punk. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, he is the next in line, and why not? I mean, once Seth Rollins got injured, and we've discussed a lot about the way the Vision story went. We still don't know who the masked guy is who delivered the stomp. Didn't look like Seth Rollins to me. I don't know what your takeaway was at the end of Survivor Series, but I think Braun Breaker is just transitioning perfectly as a champion. And well, there you go. This is your headline: India's test team need to find their Braun Breaker.
They do. They really do. But at the moment, they're 1-0 up. We'll see what happens in the second ODI that happens now. Just quickly around the grounds too. You want to talk about how the mighty have fallen. We talked about New Zealand getting a test victory in India just recently, but the West Indies and New Zealand are currently locked in a test battle
Mm.
as we speak. But it really does seem like there's the big three and everyone else, which is why when you see a team like South Africa actively going and taking big swings and saying, we
Yeah.
want to bite out of this pie as well, it fills me with hope. And I'm hoping, I really do hope that we see a resurgence with West Indies. We see New
Yeah.
Zealand. Brad, I've been saying this since about 1996, but I really hope that Sri Lanka also.
Oh, that's the team, Will.
That's,
Well, like,
that's
I will see. We shall see. Look, all I'll say is just to put this West Indies New Zealand series into context, it's a three-match series. And I wasn't aware of this stat, but I saw it online yesterday that it's the first time there is a three-match test series being played, which doesn't involve India, Australia, or England as one of the teams. I think in the last 4 or 5 years. So it's quite crazy when you think about it. How these teams don't get enough cricket. And like I said earlier, South Africa not having a home game
Mm.
for, since they won the WTC final, no home game this season for them, test match anyway. So it is heartbreaking, but hopefully things do turn around. I mean, there's hope with the next WTC cycle post 2027 when they're saying all 12 teams will be part of the World Test Championship. So that's good. But how that plays out, we'll see. But yeah, I mean, but that's the thing, right? The fact remains that when these three big teams play against each other, like the interest levels and everything else is just going so far up. I mean, I wish we found out in other news that Pakistan and Sri Lanka will be your team, will be the ones coming here 2 summers from now. Next year we have New Zealand and then the Sesqui test, obviously early 2027. But yeah, so Adelaide is when Pakistan will start their series. I mean, we're really looking ahead here in 27, 28. But I mean, a part of me wishes it was South Africa, right? Like, I
Yeah.
mean, which would have been perfect time. So we don't know when South Africa coming next because after 2027, 28, you know what will happen the next 2 summers. It'll be India again and then the Ashes of 29, 30. So it doesn't look like we'll see South Africa playing Test cricket on these shows at least for the next 6 or 7 years.
Yeah, which is an absolute shame. I remember, and before we wrap up, it's always funny to me whenever I like, because South Africa obviously share it's a big thing to get South Africa out here because their home season
Yes.
is
Yeah.
pretty much the same time as us. And
It is.
I remember forever, they wanted to have a Boxing Day test, and we like every cricket fan here in Australia is like,
Yeah.
hang on a second, you got
Apartheid.
that's our one. That one. So I'd love to see South Africa because it seeing the resurgence of South Africa really does fill me with a lot of joy because it reminds me of the stoic Graeme Smith days back in '09 where you'd have that great team, the one that
Yeah.
actually that had the Test Mace back in the day.
They did. Yeah.
It was very, very cool. But Bharat, we gotta run up because well, we've got plenty to do in preparation for the second test. If you want to be a part of our show, you can by tweet us using the hashtag Stumps and Bumps. Make sure you follow Bharat online. He's going to have a lot of articles to be pumped out at Beastie Boy 07 is where you could read them. And Bharat, too, you're also going to be with Tom Morris every single day before the a day's play. And even if the test ends prematurely, you'll still be there with the new ball.
Yeah, I mean, starting in less than an hour, Tommy and I go live with the new ball. So I know, I mean, our thing is pre-recorded. Sorry about that, but yeah. So
Oh,
we
the
have we
podcast drops before. It'll drop before this
It
goes.
will drop. That's how efficient you are, Nim. So, no, we have the new ball coming up, and yes, I've been writing pretty prolifically. I wrote the other day about Steve Smith and where he got the. It would have been great to discuss this with Eric. Maybe we'll do it next week. The Milwaukee Brewers, the connection there between the ice stickers that he's going to wear during this test match to avoid the glare. I've done a really nice feature that you will enjoy, and Brendan Doggett from his Chippy Carpenter days in Toowoomba, spoken to his boss and a former work colleague of his. So yeah, so I'm trying to be as prolific as I can be with my writing, but yeah, I mean this was fun. Not the same without Eric Bischoff. I'm sure he'll be listening to this as soon as this is published. Miss you, Eric, but we know you'll be back next week and tell us all about RAF3. And well, I'm sure he gets more time to think about how much he loves Temba Bavuma.
Absolutely. Go and tweet Eric Bischoff at ebischoff and show me support and say just how much he was missed on this episode of Stumps and Bumps. But we're going to call it a day. Thank you so much for joining us on Stumps and Bumps, and we'll catch you same time next week right here on SEN.